No, don't fire friends. I'm still fighting them. Okay. Welcome back. That's the main thing. Back and you're back safely. Baruch Hashem. But you already knew about the Iran attack. With the Iran attack happened on Shabbos. Oh, so you didn't hear it. About the Shabbos problem.
No, I heard actually on Friday because my sister-in-law only holds one day. Okay, and she was with us, and she told us on Mutzi on that Friday.
But didn't they attack on Shabbos?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I'm talking about the Sinwar situation. The death of Sinwar.
The first day.
Yeah, we found I found out Shabbos morning after the 8 o'clock minyan. They're ready. Somebody came in with the report.
Yeah, because he davens their dominant.
Who? Who?
Dominant usually davens at 8 o'clock.
Oh yeah. He sometimes I didn't see him this time, but he davened at that minyan.
Oh, that is.
Yeah. Okay. So the Mossad guys know about this.
Gewaltig. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. We are on Daf Kuf Chav Dalit Amud Beis all the way at the bottom, and we've had multiple shikas on whether or not a Bechor gets Pishnayim of a Chayv. According to Rebbe, it seems like he gets Pishnayim and could be even from the Ribbis. And according to the Rabbanon, we had actually two Lashonos. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel quoted the Rabbanon as saying, Ein Bechor Noitel Pishnayim b'milva, but Sholchu Mitam in Eretz Yisrael they sent that Bechor is Noitel Pishnayim b'milva v'loy b'Ribbis, and that would be going according to the Rabbanon. And then we had a Meimar who was from Nahardo, who said that Bechor Noitel Pishnayim b'milva v'loy b'Ribbis, which would not be like Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, rather it would be like a Sholchu Mitam. And then we added two shitas of Rab Nachman and Rabba as to, according to the Rabbana, when we say a Bechor takes Pishnayim of the Milva, is that only if the loiva paid back with cash, or is that only when the loiva paid back with karka? That was the last thing that we left off with, and Abaye challenged Rabba. Amar le Abaye le Rabba l'didach kasha l'Rab Nachman kasha. According to you, Rabba, who says that the Bechor only gets Pishnayim if the loiva paid back with cash, it's going to be shver. Why is there a difference between cash and property? And the Rab Nachman kasha, and according to Rab Nachman, so Rabbi says it's only if you pay back in property does he get it. Rab Nachman says it's only if you pay back in cash he gets it. Rab Nachman kasha, l'didach kasha, how is it shver according to you, Rabbi? Zogt Abaye, Ma'ishna Mois the loy. You say only if the loiva paid back with property, but if he paid back with money, the Bechor wouldn't get Bishnayim. Why would you say that? It's because the lav hani mois shavak avuin, the money that was paid by the loiva is not the same money that the father left over. The money that the father left over is spent by the loiva because milva loitzanitna, and now the loiva is giving new money to the estate. Why would you consider that muksuk? Why would a Bechor get Pishnayim? But karkanami, you could make the same argument even if the loiva paid back with karka. Karkanami, lav ha karka shavak avuin. The father didn't leave over any karka. The estate acquired the karka from the loiva after the fact, after the father died already. Technically, the loiva could have paid him back with anything. So therefore, that karka definitely was not in the control of the malva at the time of his death. So why should a Bechor get Pishnayim? But, and we have another problem. Now let's look at the Bach, how he presents it, because it's very different from our nusach over here. But Mar Huda Omar, you yourself said, Mistaver Haima de B'nei Marava. You like the B'nei Marava. Now the B'nei Marava that we're referring to here is the Bnei Marava that expressed an opinion on Amud Beis that we're going to soon see. And they expressed an opinion lagabe a question of a Safta. Ikadim Safta, Vizovna Zvine Zvini. You told us that you agree with the Marava, Bnei Marava, who hold that there was a case where someone said, I'm leaving my nechasim over to my grandmother. And after my grandmother, I wanted to go to my daughter or my son. And the halacha is that if he says after my grandmother to go to my daughter, to my granddaughter, and the granddaughter was married to a husband, we know a husband normally yarshins his wife, be muchzik not barai. And then what happened is before the grandmother died, the daughter died. So first it went to the grandmother. After the grandmother died, it was supposed to go to the granddaughter. The problem is the granddaughter wasn't alive. So the husband steps in and says, well, I yarshed my wife. So therefore, since it was supposed to go to my wife, it goes to me. And the Bnei Marava said, no such thing. It's going to go to the grandchildren, either the children of the daughter, it'll go to the children of the daughter, because it's not considered muksuk by the bas who died already. And what did you say, Rabba? You said mistaver taima de bnei Marava, and the reason you gave us is the ikadim safta v'zavna zvina zvini. If the safta would have sold this property in her lifetime, that sale would remain, and it would never transfer to the granddaughter, and therefore, the husband surely doesn't get it. So you're saying vibalt it could have been sold. It's obviously not considered muhsik by the bas. So the fact that the property could have been sold, or the fact that the loiva could have done anything with that property and paid back the loan with other monies, shows that this property is not considered muhsik in the rishus of the deceased, and therefore the bechor should not get bishnai. So Abai is showing you yourself, Rabbah, hold that land is not considered muhsik, and therefore how could you tell me that if you pay back with land, it would be considered muhsik and the bechor would get bishnai? So that was the kash on Rabbah. And Rav Nachman kash, it's also showing Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman said if you paid back with money, that would be considered muhsik. If you paid back with karka, it wasn't muhsik. Kasha maishna karka deloi. You Rav Nachman hold that if the loy would pay back with karka, the bechor won't get bishnai. The lav hakarka shovak avoid, because the father didn't leave over this property. This property came to the estate much later. But mois nami lav hani mois shovak avoid. Even if the loiva paid back with cash, the cash that the loiva is giving the estate is not money that the father ever owned. So how could you make that distinction? Va'oid, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua. Rav Nachman himself said in the name of Rabba Baravua that Yisoimim Shagavu Karka, the let's say an estate was owed money, and because it was owed money, the estate collected from karka of a loiva. So now they have this karka. The halacha is if the estate also owes money, so you clearly see that karka that they received is very muhsik by them. V'haraya, we say that it's as if they always had it, and therefore a b'chayv can collect from them. Because normally a b'chayv can't collect from the talton that they have. The talton they asked me, only land. So it must be that this land was considered meshubed to the loiva, to the person that the estate owed money to, even though the property was not in the rishus of the estate at the death of the deceased, because they only collected it later. Yet it's still considered muhsik. So how could you have not say lagavi aloiva that it's not considered muhsik? How can you say that a bechor wouldn't get bishnayim? So this is the kasha that Abaya asked, both on Rabbah as well as Rav Nachman. Amar Lay, so you know what they told him, and we'll learn this according to Rashi. You can see there's a long Tosfos who argues with Rashi. But Amar Lay, so Rabba answered back to Abaye both on behalf of himself and on behalf of Rav Nachman. Loy l'didi kasha, v'loy l'Rav Nachman kasha. Not fair on me, and it's not fair on Rav Nachman. Taima the b'nei my Rabba kamrinon v'lon loy svirla. We don't hold like what we just said. Both Rav Nachman and I both agree to Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So let's go back to Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. We both agree that according to the Rabbanon, Ein Bechar Noitel Pishnayim B'Milva, it doesn't make a difference if it's a Milva B'Shtar, and it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make a difference if it was paid back with Kesef or if it was paid back with Karka. Our personal shita is, of course, Ein Bechar Noitel Pishnayim B'Milva. The point that we made, where Rav Nachman said that if a Bechor gets Pishnayim, it's only if the Levi paid back with cash, and Rabbah said only if it's paid back with Karka, that wasn't our own personal shita. That was according to the B'nei Rava, the B'nei Eretz Yisrael, who were Sholchum Mitam, and they said Bechor Noitel Pishnayim B'Milva. And we told them as follows: Memela, if you want to hold against B'Milva, we disagree. We all never does a Bechor get Pishnayim on the return of any milva. But you were saying that you do get Zok Rav Nachman, at least say that only applies to if he paid back the Kesef, not the Karka. And Rabbi said at least say that it only applies if he paid back the Karka, not the Kesef. So therefore you can't ask a kash on me anymore. I said like the B'nai Marava, I said like this. It's true, you're right, I said that. But when I talked about when there's going to be a Pishnayim to the Bechor, that wasn't really my shita. That was just explaining the way I understood the shita of the B'nai Marava. Now, one of the reasons Tosfos doesn't like this pshat is because it's very light on words. It doesn't say all this in the Gemara. So Zok the Gemara, Loy l'didi kasha v'loy l'Rav Nachman kasha, Haim b'B'nai Marava kaminon v'lon loy svirla. So Rashi, the Rishbam is going to elaborate, and we'll learn that inside. Tosfos has a different approach. Tosfos learns that Rabbi is saying, I am the one who disagrees completely with the B'nai Marava, and I hold like Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel that in the Rabbanon never does a Bechor get Pishnayim from a Choyv. Rav Nachman holds exactly the opposite. Rav Nachman actually holds that the Bechor will get Pishnayim whether or not it was paid back in Karka, or whether or not it was paid back with cash. What's that? You know, it says that he says that more in Rabbah than in Rav Nachman. Yeah, he says v'lon le'sfirlam, but it doesn't say beferish what we do hold, right? So it does fit into the basic words of the Gemara, but the way the Rashbam explains how Rav Nachman Shita is, Tosfos argues on it. But it does say exactly those words. Okay, so let's see the Rashbam inside when the Rashbam answers the kat. Zok the Rashbam l'tamayu de b'nei Marava amrinon v'lon lo yisfirla. Zok the Helig Rashbam ushenuya hu the kamishani Rab. Here Rabba is defending himself as well as Rav Nachman. Anov Rav Nachman, myself and Rav Nachman, lo yisfirlon the b'nei Marava the sholchum itam klal. We don't hold up the B'nai Marava quoted on Kuf Chav Daled Amud Beis that hold that the Bechor gets Pishnayim of a repaid loan. Elach Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel. We all like Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel quoted yesterday. The Amar Aliba D'Rabbanan Eina Bechor Noitel Pishnayim B'Milva. We hold that a Bechor does not get Pishnayim in the Milva, no matter how it's paid back. Like the Gemara is going to paskin at the bottom of Kuf Chafel days. Loishna gavu mois and loishna gavu karka. We agree that ein habechor noitel pishna. Kafil Rav Nachman, even according to Rav Nachman, who said the Omar Yesoymim shegavu karka b'choiv avin b'choiv choizer v'goiv oisomehen. That's going to be somewhat difficult to understand, because if the b'choiv could take that karka from them to collect on his choiv, karka that the deceased never ever had. karka that only came to the estate after the deceased died because money was owed to him, and that's considered muksuk, so that's going to be a little bit of a problem. How could Rav Nachman hold that it's not considered muksuk, and the Bechor doesn't get Pishnayim? The fact that a Bechor could take it away from them must mean that it is considered muksuk. So Rav Nachman's going to have a real problem here. Zok Dreshbam, Zok the Gemara, Zok Rabba, Afilu Hachi, Moida the Lagabi Bechora, Loi Choshev Karka Haloive, Muksuk, Limalva, V'loi Shokot Babachar Pishnayim, Kidebaskinon, Hilchasol even though Lagabe, another Balchoiv, we consider this property muksuk by the assignment, and therefore the Balchoiv can come and take it away from the assignment. Sounds like it's very muksuk, but that's not a contradiction to saying that it's not considering muksuk Lagabe Balchoiv. And we need to explain why. You know why Reb Nachman said that a Balchoiv can get it? That's not an indication of the fact that it's considered muksuk in the estate, and therefore it should translate into a bechor taking pishnai. That's not what it means at all. There's a separate reason for that particular case. This is discussed in detail in Perikol Shah, and there the Gemara reveals to us a new reason why it would make sense that the bechor could collect it, even though it might not be considered muksuk. The itmar ba'choiv Abaye Amar L'Mafreya Hugay. Abaye says that when a Balchoiv collects, it's as if he always had the money. Rav Amar Mikanu L'Balchoiv. We only consider that the money was by the Malva once he actually collects the money. The Loi Chosh of Muksuk Elam Ishas Gevia Ve'el. The Malva is not considered Muksuk until he actually receives the funds. Ukedim Afar Shasam time of the Rava. And the Gemara in Psochim explains Rava's reasoning. Even the ilu havel zuze have misalik zuze. If the loiva would have had cash, he surely would have paid the malva back with cash and not given over to the malva his properties. So, at what point is it sealed that the property is given to the malva? Only at the last minute when he actually gives the property, because up until that point he could have and he would have, had he had the money, given cash. So ishtakach the hash the hudakakali. So the kinyan to the malva on this property only begins right when he receives the property. So if that's Rava's shita, so how is it? If you're telling me that the estate, the malva, doesn't receive the karka up until the moment they get it, and it's not considered like they had it until now, because up until now the loiva could have paid them with cash. So why in the world should a balchoiv of the estate be able to seize that property that they never got until this moment? We all know that if the estate buys property, surely a malva cannot come and seize that property. A malva could only take property that was part of the estate when the nifter died. So over here, if you hold that balchoiv mikan ulehabo goiva, how is it possible that a balchoiv of Yisomim can take property that they acquired from a loiva who paid them? If you hold that the moment the shibud is created, the moment the loan is given, we already considered whatever will be paid back to the malva, we consider that as if it already belongs to the malva. That would be a logical explanation as to why their bachayv can take it, because we look at it like the moment the father, the deceased, lent out the money, he already had acquired the property that he eventually was given to pay back for that loan. We look at it like the father had it already. But that's not what Rava holds. If you hold that it's not considered repaid to the malva has it until he actually has it in his hand, well then, so this property that the Yisomim received as payment for a loan that was owed to the estate, we shall look at it as if the Yisomim bought a new property. And the ilukali minachsi, if the Yisomim went out and bought property with cash that was left over in the estate, mi mishtabed l'bachayv, surely a bachayv of the estate would not be able to seize that property. So what is the reasoning for it? According to Rava, who else bachayv mikanu lavo? Umeshani, the Gemara answers a very innovative teretz. Shani hasam, the amar lahu bachayv davuin, the bachayv of the father, meaning the man that had a lien on the estate will say, this property that you received from your loiva, kihecha the mishabed le'ahu loiva lavuchain, the same way there was a shibud created the moment that the loan was given to that loiva, and there was a shibud on this property from the loiva to your father. Guess what? Hachanami mishabed lididi. Your father's loiva is directly mishubed to me as well. Midirab Noson, because of the famous shibud of Rab Noson. If A owes B money and B owes C money, then C can collect directly from A. So here it has nothing to do with that it was muksik. It was not muksik at all. The only reason why the second bachlev can take it away is because it was always owed directly to him. Forget the estate. The shibud was always directly to him from the other loiva because the malva of that other loiva was my loiva. Vahi shinuya dissamchu. That's a good teretz. The Rava, the Hilchos HaKavasei, Lagabe Abaye. We know we normally pass like Rava against Abaye, except for 6 cases of Yalkagam. Rava, he's the one who said this. Who Mishani Lahad Rav Nachman. He learns, so if he learns Shani Rav Nachman, that it's working with Shibud Rav Nasan, that's a very, very legitimate understanding of Rav Nachman. Therefore, you have no right from Rav Nachman about anything to do with whether or not this property is muhsik into the estate. Hilchach Afilu Rav Nachman loy choshev l'karka shaloiva muhsik l'malva. Rav Nachman does not consider the karka of the loiva in the estate muhsik in the estate of the malva, and therefore a b'chor should get bishnayim. But it's only muhsik for the malva when it's actually delivered to the malva, which is royu, not muhsik. Should have a boy, you have a masbin loyad, because up until the moment that the property is given over to the malva, the loiva could have always paid up with cash. Therefore, my the Amar Rab Nachman, Gavu Karka, Ein Loi, Gavu Mois Yesh Loi, it's Lataimayu, the Bnei Marava Ka'amar. He's saying it Lataimayu, the Bnei Marava, the Amri Aliba de Rabbanon, that said according to the Rabbanon, the Noitel B'milva Pishnayim, the Chashvin Le Muchsakas Lamalva. So Rab Nachman really disagrees with that cheetah. He really holds that a repayment of a loan is not muhsik, and the Bukhari won't get bishnai. But he is saying, well, also Rab Nachman Meimar, Lididi, for me personally, Loishna Gavu Kaka and Loishna Gavu Mois Ein Loi. The Bukhari never gets bishnai because I hold of Rabbi Yehuda and Shmuel. The Kavachaymer who could Amr Lil. And I agree with your Kavachaymer Abaye. If karka we say is not considered muhsik, cash is not considered muhsik either. Idamar il shavacha demamela amir rabbanon deloy shakol malva mibot. The malva doesn't get anything from the bechor doesn't get bishnayim of shavacha demamela. Ela the two, but according to you, sholchim l'tam, according to you, the b'nei ma'rava, and you insist that the bechor would get bishnayim even according to rabbanon. At least agreed to me that if the loiva paid back in karka, there even you should agree that the bechor doesn't get bishnayim b'lo the high ira lo shavak lo avion, because the father never left this property over. I hold like Rava who holds v'alchoiv yikanu levo. So all of this has to all be squeezed into the couple of words that our Gemara shared with us, and that's what Tosfos says. The Gemara should have given a hint of Rab Nachman, of explaining Rab Nachman's halacha of Shibud Rab Nasan. None of that is in the Gemara. You need to respond to tell us everything. Kedamin l'kamon sholchem mitam hilchos ukarv adan on Amud Beis. The Gemara tells us that's how we paskin u'chud parish Rabba Tamayu the Kaddim Saket. So that deals with Rab Nachman, but we haven't yet dealt with Rabba. Uchumachi Amar Rab Nachman Gavu Karka Ein Loi Gavu Moishesh. Umi Loi Svirli, I don't hold like that. Loi Svirli, we don't hold like that. Bein Karka Bein Mois Ein Loi Kedefrishis. But Rabba Nami Latemayu Deblima Rabba. What about Rabba? Rabba who said only if you pay back in Karka, not in cash, only there do you say the Bechar gets Pishnayim. That once again is not Rabbi's personal shita. That's just explaining the Shulchan Mutam. But l'didi loishna mois loishna karka ein l'kidavidover. Well, I agree to Rav Nachman that regardless, a bechor never gets pishnayim from a repaid loan. The loy haya avoin muksuk loy b'hai karka v'loy b'hai mois. The father was not muksuk in either. Miu b'nei my Rava, the Shulchan Mutam, who said that the bechor does get pishnayim from a repaid loan. Even the chashvin loy muksuk b'milva, he considers that the estate is a muksuk in a milva. The yitel b'char pishnayim equal memer. I think it would be better to say that only applies to begovu karka hu de ka'amri eshloi, because domi muksuk tfei mimois. Karka, there seems to be a better shibran than new money that the loy would have paid back. The ha ishtabed la le'miya b'chayim, because at least there's a shibud on the properties of the loy. There is no shibud on the cash of the loy. At least agree to me. The name Rava, who you want to say that a bechor gets pishnayim, at least say that's only if it was paid back in karka, but not in cash. Okay. Kavalti. Okay, Zok the Gemara weiter. Now the Gemara says, we were talking about this case of Savta. What exactly is this case of Savta? My Savta. The Huda Amar Lu. A person once said as follows. He was directing the divvying up the distribution of his estate. And he said, Nichsi l'safta. I want to give all my nechasim, I want to leave it over to my grandmother. Zokter Ashpam, Liziknosi, Ani Noisein, Kol Nichsai. I want to bequeath all of my nechasim to my grandmother. Im aviv or aim aviv or aim imay. It doesn't matter if it was his maternal grandmother that he was referring to, nor if it was his paternal grandmother. Okay, Basra, and after she dies, Yosy, I wanted to go to my yard, my yard. So Zotar Shpam, Achar Mois Ziknasi. How does that work? If it's by his grandmother, how does he suddenly take it away from him? That's a very important point. That's exactly what we're going to discuss, how that works. A very good point. After my grandmother dies, it should not go to her yarshim, even though it's hers. Rather, it should go to my next of kin. Kagoin b'ni, my son, or biti, or my daughter, or achi, or my brother. Hakar of koidim, whatever the order is of priority for my Yerusha. So that was the case. The Havile Barta, he had a daughter. The Havanesiva that was married, and Shchiva B'chaye Baila, she died before her husband. U'B'chaye Sapta, before her grandma. So now, he said, my Yerusha should go to my grandmother, and after my grandmother, it should go to my daughter. His daughter dies. He dies, or it could be he died, then his daughter dies, and then his grandmother dies. So the question is, Basra de Shchiva Sapta, after the grandmother died, also Baal, the husband of this daughter, came to Besin, Katava, and he wanted the Yerusha because once the grandmother dies, it's supposed to go to my late wife, and Ayash my late wife. So Amar Ravuna said, you're right. L'yarsi vafilu l'yarsi yarsi. When I said it should go after my grandmother, to go to my Yarshim, it meant not only the Yarshim, but even the Yarshim of my Yarshim, and therefore it should go to the husband. Okay? Let's have a look. So let's look at what this guy wanted. B'chaya bayla b'chaya safta. B'achakach shechiva safta. And then the grandmother died ultimately. Also bayla b'katova. And the husband now wanted to claim what he felt was his fair share. When the mace created this priority order, his daughter was alive, and therefore his daughter should have yarshened that potential to have it when her grandmother dies. And this man wanted the yarshen the schus that his wife had. Dovi wants to know, once you give it to your grandmother, how do you then divert? So that will come out today. Amar Huna, Hayu Batzali your soy de Amar Hu Gavra. You know what he meant when he said that? He meant li your soy, uli yarsa your soy kama. He meant it should go to my yarshin, and whoever yarshins them, it should continue down the chain. The kivan shenosna lebas liyarsha. Since he said, I do want my daughter to yarshin it, varei zochsa behena bas choices a resha shalom. And the bas should have been yarshining it because she was the Yerush of the, he was the Yerush. Kingdom of first time will come on. And here is the key that Dovi was looking for. When you say it should go to my grandmother and then it should go to my daughter, what it means is it's as if I said, I'm being makneh to my daughter now, but while my grandmother's alive, I want her to have benefit of it. So really, the Yerusha was straight to the daughter. However, he's making a tanai that the grandmother should have the paris of this field until she dies. Since my wife was already zoiche in the kinyan haguf of this property while my wife was still alive, now the Baal will yarshin her, because this is not royu, this is muksuk, because my wife had a kinyan haguf in the karka the moment her father died. The Hainu Yarsi Yosy. So now I am the Yerush of the Yerush. My wife was the Yerush of her father, and I am her Yerush. The Hakim of Farish Kamei, that's how the Gemara is going to explain it soon. However, when we have the Lo Yadina Nakati time of Rafun, Dr. Rashbam, although I was kind enough to spill the beans and to tell you how the Gemara is going to conclude, right now at this point, Rafuna's sheet is a mystery. For some reason, it should go to the husband, and we don't know why. All we know is at this point, all we know is the psak halacha l'maisa that Rav Huna said, but we don't know yet the reason for it. The time of lo yadinin adam afarish le'kamei until the Gemara goes through the process of analyzing. So that's what Rav Huna paskin. Rav Anon paskin a little bit differently. Rav Anon paskin liyarsi v'loy liyarsi yarsi. It does not go to the husband, but who does it go to? This is going to be very critical. If I'm not doing Edim Achshav. What I'm doing is first I wanted to go to my grandma. After my grandmother dies, then I wanted to follow the normal pattern of Yerusha that it would have followed had I not given it to my grandma. If his daughter would have been alive by his death, or his brother, or his father, right? That is the order of Yerusha. Those are all my first round Yerusha. I never wanted it to go to the daughter of my son, which is already a second door, which is a Yarsi Yarsi. So what Rav Anan is saying is, I only wanted to go to a first level, first step Yerush, not to a second Yerush, not to a Yerush of a Yerush. This son doesn't have a direct connection to Yarshin it from the grandfather. He's Yarshining it through his mother. That him I don't want to get. And therefore, Lola Bailam, therefore her husband shouldn't be able to Yarshin it from her either. The Iunami Yarsi Yarsai. I only wanted to go to a direct Yerush, not a Yerush of a Yerush. Because what he meant was, according to Rav Anan, is the Yarsoi Dafka Kamar. He was very specific. Only the people who come directly as a first level, as a first round Yerush. So in other words, if it goes to my brother or my father, I'm fine. But it shouldn't go to my son's son. I want it only to a first round pick. In this case, the only one left was the husband of the Bas, and I don't want it to go to a second round pick. I only want to go to a first round pick. So you know what we're going to do? We can't do the next step. The first step was it went to the grandmother. we're looking for a first round pick, a Yerush of the deceased. We can't find one, so just leave it where it is. It stays by the grandmother, and whoever would normally ask the grandmother would get this estate. The if someone says, I want my nechassim to go to you, and only after you die do I want to go to Pliny, if the sheni dies, so the Yerusha no longer has a destination address, it'll just stay where it is. So that is what Rav Anon passed. So Rav Huna said the husband will get it, and Rav Anon said the husband will not get it. So they sent from Eretz Yisrael, we agree that the husband shouldn't get it. But we don't agree exactly with what Rav Anon said. Because Rav Anon said it wouldn't go to grandchildren. Because he held that I'm stipulating dafka to a first round pick. We disagree. So about the fact that the husband doesn't get it, that we agree. But we don't agree with this psak, v'lav mithameh. And the Gemara explains. The Baal Yoris. The Baal definitely doesn't get it. But v'lav mithameh. But not because of Rav Anon's tam, because I stipulated dafka first round pick. Rav Anon savar, Abelgab the Havale Brala Brate. What if his deceased daughter had a son? According to Rav Anon Yoris, he wouldn't get it because that would be a second round draft pick. But we don't hold it yet. We hold the Ilu Havale Brala Brate Vada Yoris. Sure, the son of his daughter would get it. And there's no hakpada on this guy dafka for our first round pick. So why is it that we agree with him in the Psak Halacha that the husband shouldn't get it? Uval hainu time with the loyaris, mishum dahavale roy, because it's roy. It's not like a mayachshav. Rather, the ein habal noito beroy kivamuchsa. The Baal doesn't have a right to yarshin anything that comes to his wife's estate, to his late wife's estate after she dies. He only is entitled to something that was already in his wife's possession at the time of her death. So Zok Gemara, Michlal de Rav Huna Savar, Baal Noitel, Beroy Kevamuchzik. Rav Huna, who held that the husband does get it, how does he explain how the husband gets it? Are you going to tell me that Rav Huna holds that a husband yarshins his wife, even things that his wife received after she died? Nobody holds like that. So what is the explanation for Rav Huna? How is it possible that the husband could yarshin his wife if the nechosim didn't reach his wife until his wife passed? Rabbi Lazar, Dover said niftach b'gedolim. Gedolim made the psak halacha. Rav Huna is a great person. He paskin it, but he didn't explain himself. In his time back time, little old me, Rabbi Lazar is saying, I had to come and explain it. And the way we're going to understand the shita of Rav Huna is kol omer acharecha, omer ma'achtav. When you say acharecha, meaning it should go to my grandmother, and acharecha, it should go to my daughter. That's as if he said, meaning I'm really giving the whole thing to my daughter, but temporarily I'm giving a kinyan payers to my grandmother. Therefore, Rav Huna doesn't consider this royu by the deceased wife. He considers her a mukhta because she always had the kinyan gufa karka, and therefore her husband can yash. Amar Rabba, and Rabba said, Mistavra Taima the B'nai my Rabba. So this is the Rabba that we were Abaye quoted Namar Aleph. I agree with the B'nai my Rabba that it should not be considered muhsik by the husband. The ikadam savta, the zavna, everybody agrees that if while the savta was alive, she sold the property, zvini, the buyer would keep it, and it would never transfer over to the daughter and therefore to her husband. So it can't be that the daughter already has a kinyan aguf in the property, because if she did, how could the grandmother sell? So you see clearly that Rabbah holds, in fact, that even karka isn't muksuk, which explains why on the Amud Aleph we concluded that Rabbah said me and Rav Nachman both agree that no matter what the loan was paid back with, it's not considered muksuk, and the bechor would not get pishna. So to sum it all up, Amar Papa, Hilchasa ein abal noitel v'roi kavamuk. Everybody agrees that when a husband yarshins his wife, he only yarshins something that actually belonged to his wife in her lifetime, not something that came to her estate after she passed. The ein bechor noitel v'roi kavamuk. A bechor does not take v'roi kavamuk, which is paskening like the Rabbanon, So the Rashbam specifically refers to what case we're talking about, and we'll see the Rashbam inside. And the Eina Bechor, Noitel Bishtaim B'milva, Bein Shagovu Karka, Bein Shagovu Mois. Let's have a look at the Rashbam over here, because this basically rounds up our sugya. So, Amar Papa Hilchas Eina Baal Noitel B'roy Kavumuchzik, B'royu Mamish, it means it wasn't yet in the possession of the deceased. Imagine a woman dies, and after the woman dies, her father dies. So she would normally yashin her father, but since she only yashin her father after she died, the husband gets no chelik of it. Also, Rapapa Lashmian, the law yaris. The ha kul amamoidi. That everybody agrees. That's not under dispute at all. The law yaris. Like we learned at Psukim, remember we wanted to know, where did Pinchas have land from that Elazar didn't have? It must be that he got it from his grandfather because his father didn't get it because his father wouldn't have yarshed his mom. Ravuna only argues when you use the nusach of acharecha because there's a question of mayachta. Look at the parish of Elazar, the chaloimer charecha, but real roy, meaning it really didn't come to the estate until after the wife died. The Pligibei Rebbe of Rabbanon, where Rebbe and Rabbanon argue, Lagabe Abechor, to go in Chafura, Bavashuvli, if it was just straw and it grew up into wheat, or Shlufavi Avatamri, it was little buds, and now it became full grown dates. Loy Asalash Miina, the Eina Baal Moto. Surely, there the Baal would get. If a wife died and left over small little buds on the tree, and the tree blossomed and grew, blossomed and grew, and it produced full fruit, Avada the Baal gets it. Avada the Baal don't. So what's called royu for the Pishnaim of Bechor is not the same classification as what's called royu to a husband Yarshin. Shareka Shamesa, as soon as she died, Yorish is called Lechosim. He yarshin those trees in the state that they were, as immature as they were, but those were his. So because they were very much hers at the time of her death. It's his pears, it's his trees that grew and matured. Although by Bechor, the Rabbanan hold there, he wouldn't get Pishnayim of that. The husband man time of Gedarminal ill because losses loy matana. That's only because there's a special nusach by the Pishnayim of Bechor that says losses loy to tell us that he doesn't get it until he gets it. You couldn't possibly make an argument that these trees are not his the moment his wife dies. If the Bechor was the only child, of course he would yarshin the trees and the pears, no matter how they mature, because they're all his right away. Okay, now what was the next halacha that we're paskening? So we're paskening to Rabbanan, meaning kagoyin meaning the type of shvach that we say is royu, not muktzah, that a bechor pishnayim is excluded from. That's only if there was a name change. But as we explained 2 days ago, but if a tree just got bigger and better, but it didn't change completely, and it's a different name, there are akoyel moed in the shakal chelik b'chayra. Even the Rabbanan holds that he gets pishnayim of that. Aval anov mebotrim, but the Gemara is going to discuss on Amud Aleph. But if they were grapes and they harvested it, that required input of the Yosoimim. So it didn't just come by itself. It came because it was man-made shvach. There loy shakal b'char pishnayim. There the b'char would not get pishnayim. Afilu Rebbe, even Rebbe would agree, because that's like building a building on the property. That's surely not shvach to memela. Even though when you harvest grapes, they still considered grapes. But there the problem is that it wasn't shvach that came by itself. If the Yosoimim themselves put money and effort into improving it, they're akoyel moedim de lo shak. There even Rebbe agrees that the bechor does not have pishnayim. If the bechor died in the lifetime of his father, Bonov shel bechor yorshin chelik b'cherosoi im achei av tumi de b'noi shlach. If the bechor should die, he's not giving up his pishnayim. If the bechor died before the father died, he still is entitled to his pishnayim, and his children will stand in his place and yarshin that pishnayim on his behalf, even if they're girls, like the b'noi shlach brother. Look at the freezers level perkin, kiditani b'nesefta, the bechors, look at the min balach sudaris. Beautiful. And the last halacha was Eina Bechor Noitel B'Shnayim B'Milva, V'afilu B'Shtar, Bein Shegavu Karka, Bein Shegavu Mois, which is like the Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel, that according to the Rabbanon, a Bechor does not get Pishnayim of any loan that's repaid to the state. The Lav Hai Karka, the Lav Hani Mois, Shavik Lanavion, the Karka repayment, or the cash repayment, was definitely not in the possession of the father at the time of his death. What if there's a mashkin? What if the father had a mashkin for this chayv? So then, then everybody agrees that bechor does take lishnaim, because if you have a mashkin, it's literally like you have the chayv repaid. The kaimalon b'chayv koine mashkin. Okay, we'll stop here and we will continue tomorrow. Wonderful day. If you have a wonderful, successful day, whatever you have to do, the content should go easy and smooth.
Sure.